Welcome back, Triumph Nation. This week's edition is from the mountains of New Mexico.
What's up, guys? Let's get into it.
First up is a hell of a week 17 in the NFL.
Yeah, let's start off by going over the Bears 49ers. The 49ers pulled it off in a 42-38 victory. What are your immediate thoughts?
Sunday night thriller. We obviously didn't get to watch it, but just looking back at the highlights, it was an amazing game that would have been great to watch live. It was just a back and forth battle. The two offenses showed up, the two defenses were pretty much non-existent, especially in that second half.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw the best of Brock Purdy, in my opinion, definitely in the late half of that game. 24 for 33, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then, of course, he had help from his star running back, McCaffrey, 23 carries, 140 yards, 1 touchdown. So they had themselves a ball. Again, the defensive side, it didn't exactly go the way they wanted it to, but they were able to hold on.
Yeah, can you believe this, the NFL statistic? I forgot what it's called, but they had CMC ranked 18th out of the whole league, like the 18th ranked running back.
Is that like the Pro Football Focus?
Yeah,
one?
Football Focus. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I thought that was crazy. Ain't no way.
To say he's even outside of the top 5 is insane, but once you get into injury and availability and stuff like that, then that may change it for some people. But definitely as far as talent, his productiveness, and what he's able to make a difference for them on the field, it's not even close. He's definitely top 5.
Yeah, he's just a machine in my opinion. Like it's like he never gets tired.
Yeah, and he's just must watch. Even when he was with the Panthers, a team that really had no hopes, no playoff hopes, he was always just a beast out there on the field. And definitely when you're watching a game, you are always seeing that one player just jump off the field, just jump off the screen. In the NFL, that tells you how great they are. So I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah, my thoughts when Caleb Williams was a draft prospect and the media and a lot of NFL analysts were comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, and I was like, this cat is good, but he's nothing to Mahomes. And then just to see his progression this year and the athleticism that he has to maneuver around the pocket and then get outside of the pocket and maneuver around NFL defensive linemen and just make beautiful passes down the field and complete them to these receivers. Saw that a lot last night.
Yeah, just like you said, there was a lot of stuff coming out about him before the draft, but he wasn't anyone I was expecting to light up the field for sure.
Last night was just a QB clinic, so not did only Caleb Williams ball out, but so did Purdy. He had 3 touchdowns passing, right, and then 2 on the ground. He just looked dominant.
Yeah, and just to touch on Caleb Williams, like what you said, not only what he's done, but what him and Ben Johnson have been able to put together, I think that's the biggest difference. Seeing what happened with his previous coach and then Ben Johnson coming in there and turning them completely around. They're 11-5 right now, and that just speaks volumes onto what they're able to put together out there. So they definitely have high hopes for this year, not only this year, but for the future.
Yeah, I'm completely impressed with what Johnson has been able to do over there in Chicago. That just goes to the fact, like you were saying, it really depends on the coach that you have coaching that team. So you can have the best NFL player, you can have the best QB in the league, but if they don't have a coach that is the right fit for them, good luck.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that everywhere at this point in time in the league with all these young quarterbacks that came in the last couple years. Older one, Baker Mayfield, what you've seen him be able to do, the difference where he started, what he's doing now in Tampa Bay. Bryce Young, what he had to go through, where he's at now with Dave Canales. Trevor Lawrence, and then Caleb Williams. You're just seeing it everywhere. Sam Darnold's another one I think of, someone that was with the Jets and it just looks like this kid cannot do anything. And of course we see that's just absolutely not the case. So looking forward now, 49ers Seahawks is going to be a huge game because that's going to determine the top seed, the number 1 seed in the NFC. So that's going to be a must watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in Week 18, there's a few of those games that are going to come down to who's going to win the division, who might have the number 1 seed. So very exciting.
Yeah, and that's the give and take, right? When a season like this where there's no really front runner, people that are pulling away, normally where these games are kind of like throwaways for a lot of these top teams, now we're able to see some really high level, playoff level football in this Week 18, so that's super exciting.
I'm just looking. Good commentary really makes or breaks games too.
Yeah.
And you have Chris Collinsworth, he's always glazing Patrick Mahomes. So I didn't watch the game last night, but man, you got to put some credit on Mike Tirico. He's just an outstanding commentator.
You could probably speak more to that than me. I'm not a huge fan of Collinsworth as well, but definitely Mike Tirico is someone that definitely is good.
He's a legend. Next, we had Eagles and Bills. Tell me about that ugly game.
Eagles took the win, 13-12. Jalen Hurts had, is it wrong to say typical game? 110 yards.
No, that's
110
typical.
yards, one touchdown. Obviously, he has his moments. We've seen it. He reminds me a lot. I know this is going to get a lot of hate, but like of Dak, where he has his moments. And again, he had that MVP season. It looked like Super Bowl win. He has playoff wins, so there's a huge difference there. And when it comes down to clutch and crunch time, definitely I feel like he has a better front office coaching around him than Dak does, but just where you see the ebbs and flows of his career. So it's tough because at times you want to put him in that top 5 quarterback ranking, but then at other times you see games like this where he's just not able to turn it on and make the difference through the air. But ultimately, Josh Allen at the end misses an open 2-point play, something we never see from him. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel for Josh Allen. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in this generation, and it's like he's always putting his team in position to win, and he's always making those plays, whether it's with his legs or in the passing game. So to see him miss a wide open receiver like that in the end zone, we'll probably not see it again, and it sucks for the Bills. But being a Texans fan, when we're playing for seeding right now, I'm glad that they lost because that bumped us up to number 5. So and we have the tiebreaker on them. So that's my initial thoughts. It sucks, but oh well.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. My thoughts when I see that is just, man, the Bills cannot catch a break. It's like every time they get into position to get ahead, to pull away from the pack, they just drop one. They're just something crazy happens, whether it's something with the officials, whether it's a playoff game, and just something just goes wrong for them. And it's not just the Josh Allen era. It's all the way back to the older Bills era where they lost those 3 Super Bowls. It's just like this. They can never stay ahead. And I just feel for teams like that, especially being a Dallas Cowboys fan, where it's like pretty much the same thing for the last 25 years.
They lost 3 or 4 Super Bowls in a row in the 90s or 80s.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you look at those teams like the Bills or even the Chargers, like they're always so close, but they just can't get over that hump. Both offenses struggled, really. A couple key plays here and there, but overall the defense is dominated, in my opinion.
There was a couple big splash plays, but other than that, they were struggling the whole game.
Yeah. The Bills offense, there's a lot more woes than there is wows. Ultimately, the Bills gave this game away.
Yeah. Let's talk about some Seahawks-Panthers. Seahawks were able to pull off the win, 27-10. The big story on that game, Zach Charbonnet, 18 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. And it's their 6th straight win for the Seahawks. And they're looking to go against the 49ers like we were talking about. What are your thoughts on that one?
That was, to me, an ugly game. They had 4 turnovers combined, both teams.
Yeah.
Both teams had 1 fumble each and 1 interception each. So how the 49ers and Bears was a QB clinic, this was not a QB clinic. Darnold and Young had 201 yards combined, 2 touchdowns total combined, and then 2 interceptions combined total. So it's just the complete opposite of the quarterback play that we saw in the 49ers and Bears game. And the Seahawks won 27-10, but if I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm getting a little worried about that passing game in Seattle. I don't know, something just seems off. They're just not clicking, in my opinion.
You love to see a 6-game win streak, but at the same time, you can kind of see it when the teams are just barely scraping by. Even though they're winning those games, it just kind of tees them up for a big mishap to happen in the playoff rounds. So it's not as pretty as you'd like to see going into the playoffs, but definitely they're alive and well. And the biggest thing is that they seem to have a lot of the pieces to be able to make a nice run. So we'll see how it goes. A lot of that's going to rely on Sam Darnold and what he's able to put out there on the field. Next, let's get into some Texans-Chargers. I know you can't wait to get into that one. Texans, 11-5 now. Pulled it off, 2016 victory. C.J. Stroud, 16 for 28, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, also 2 interceptions. What are you thinking?
This was a roller coaster game.
Yeah.
We started out super hot, the Texans, go H-Town. We had 2 deep bombs to the 2 Iowa State rookies. The first one was a 75-yard bomb to Jaden Higgins. And right after that, CJ followed up with a 45-yard bomb to Jalen Noel. So that had me really hyped. And then after those first couple drives, our offense just couldn't get anything going. Luckily, we have the best defense in the league, so that helps a lot. Ultimately, I have a lot more optimistic feelings and I have a lot more hope than I do oh, dang, we should have done this, or we didn't do that. Damn, I'm sure we're even going to do anything in the playoffs now. So it was ultimately a really good game, and we gave the Broncos their first division title in 10 years. So everybody's talking about that. You see Tom Pelissero and all those NFL analysts talk about that instead of the Texans winning a much-needed game on the road in Los Angeles. So I'm really excited. Now it's the question of, are we going to rest our players next week or not? So.
Yeah, y'all definitely helped out Sean Payton's bid for an extension, so he's definitely liking that one. You talked about it, the offense. We've been talking about the Texans' offense for a while now, pretty much for most of the second half of the season. We've been doing this. You want to see more consistency from C.J. Stroud. You want to see more consistency from the rushing attack. Mark and Jordan combined for 107 rushing yards total between the both of them. So, again, you didn't have much on the rushing end as well, but just the defense. Anytime you hold a team to 16 points, there's no excuse not to win. Again, it just seems like the offense is able to do just enough to get y'all over the hump, and it's kind of like what we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks now. How much weight is that defense going to be able to carry? And you've got all the pieces there, so it's just a matter of time and seeing how they hold up. Really, with the teams like that, they can go as deep as their coaching and their defense is going to take them. We talked about this for Sam Darnold, but C.J. Stroud, he's got to be the X factor. He's got to take the reins in his hand and just carry this offense on his back at this point.
Yeah, in that game, I saw a lot more from C.J. Stroud. Those 2 deep bombs that he made to those receivers for touchdowns. The past few weeks, he's been missing those wide open deep shots. So it was really good to see him make those deep balls because that's really his bread and butter. That's where he's best at is play action, deep threat down the field. As long as he can get it going, we're going to go as far as he can take us. And I believe that is in Santa Clara, so that's what I'm hoping for the Super Bowl.
Who do y'all have next week?
We got the Colts.
Okay.
So
that'll be a good one. Are they playing Rivers again?
I don't know. They might play the rookie, Riley Leonard.
Okay.
It really felt like that was Rivers' last game, like for sure this time.
Yeah, no, I think they're pretty much out. It's tough for them, man. They look so good at the beginning of the season, and it's just every single thing went wrong. Even getting down to Daniel Jones, starting him, this isn't going to go anywhere. Then they move past all of that, get off to a fiery hot start, get on a streak, and then just everything falls apart for them. You hate to see it. I know you love to see it as a Texans fan. But at the end of the day, that's pretty much how it went.
Yeah, as a Texas fan, I love to see it. But on the flip side, you don't want to win a division or to win games like that with everything falling apart player-wise with injuries. Hopefully, we can take advantage of that and keep rolling.
Next, let's get into some Ravens versus Packers. Ravens were able to get the W. 41-24. They're still in the playoff hunt. Browns were able to help them out a huge amount. What are your thoughts on that?
That's what happens when you give King Henry the rock.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it was 216 rushing yards. Just an insane game from him.
Every time they allow Derrick Henry to do his thing, 25 or more carries, they're winning.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's Harbaugh came out last year or earlier this year and said, we don't want Henry to have more than 20 carries in a game. And they've been losing a lot of games. So I'm thinking, is that because they're wanting Lamar Jackson to take the reins of this offense? I know they paid him big money.
Yeah.
But when you got somebody at the caliber that Derrick Henry is, you need to run him. You need to play him.
Yeah, and Jackson's a beast, right? 2 MVPs, there's no debate on that. But you've got to have it both ways. You've got to have it through the air and on the ground. So, like you said, I understand Derrick Henry. He's older for 100% for a running back. But definitely in the later half of the season, this is where you want to make your hard push, give him the rock. Same for the QBs. Like you see with these other mobile quarterbacks, they kind of rein it in on the rushing attack during the earlier half of the season. But on the back half and in the playoffs, those guys are using their legs and getting out of the pocket. And I think it needs to be the same way for the rushing attack. They just need to give that dude the rock and let him carry the team pretty much.
Talking about the Ravens, they play the Steelers next week. That was one of the games we were talking about.
Yeah.
The winner of that game wins the division. So right now, if things stay the same, the Texans are the 5th seed. We'll play either the Steelers or the Ravens. And I don't know who I would rather play.
Yeah. My immediate thoughts on that one is I've got to think the Ravens are going to take it. Just seeing if we can move on to the Steelers versus Browns, seeing what the Steelers put out there on the field this past Sunday. They took the L 6-13 again to the Browns. It was not a pretty game, wasn't an exciting game until the very end where it seemed like maybe the Steelers were going to have a chance to tie it up, take the lead, but ultimately that just didn't happen. So after seeing Derrick Henry put on that performance, again, the Steelers are without TJ Watt. I've got to think the Ravens are going to be able to put something together with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and take this one from them. What are you thinking?
If you win, you're in. So this is all hands on deck. You got to think as a head coach, okay, what has been working for us? And you have to go back and forth. Okay, well, what is our identity? What do we want to do? What have we been trying to do all season? And I feel like those are going to go head to head with each other for Harbaugh. So I believe if Harbaugh has any common sense left, that he is going to run the rock heavy with Derrick Henry, and then Lamar Jackson will just be that piece to just relieve some pressure off the running game.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Let's go ahead and touch on the last one we've got here, Jags versus the Colts. Jags were able to pull away 23-17 victory. Phillip Rivers, this game was almost identical to the past ones he had. So, like you said, I think he's done for the season. It was an interesting story. It was cool to see him get out there, 44 years old, 5 years retired. Ultimately, he can still ball. He can still do some things. I don't necessarily think he's a starter in the league at this point. I think there's plenty of young, capable quarterbacks in the league who aren't starters, who are backups that can probably take those reins. I don't know if necessarily Riley Leonard is the guy, but definitely for this last game and maybe going into the beginning, a couple weeks of the season, I don't know where Anthony Richardson is with his crazy injury. I think they said he's back to practice and stuff like that. So, again, we'll see with that, but ultimately, the Jags, those guys are on a roll, and yeah, it's looking good for them moving into the later half.
And I absolutely hate it. I was really hoping that the Colts would pull off an upset, and they were, 7 points away from doing that. It went down to the wire. I caught the last bit of that game, and I was really pulling for the Colts to pull out a victory just because that would give us the number one spot in the AFC South. But ultimately, the Jaguars, they're looking really good. Liam Cohen, that just goes to show what we were saying earlier about getting a good right head coach for your quarterback, especially your franchise quarterback. And Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence are looking really good together. They're super hot. Yeah, they didn't win in a pretty way, but they still won. So now I'm hoping next week they play the Titans. I'm hoping that the Titans, probably the most poverty franchise in the NFL outside of the Jets, can pull off a miracle. The Nashville Music City Miracle again, like they did the Bills a long time ago, but it's not looking good for winning that division.
You ready to get into some college football?
Yeah, let's do it. First, we have Miami against OSU. I'm looking at OSU. I think together this is just going to be a defensive battle for both teams. OSU's defense is number one overall in every category. Pissing in the wind, they'd be number one. Right now, I'm just thinking that OSU defense is just going to be super controlling in that game. So really, that defense is going to have to pick up a lot of the slack that offense has. OSU's offense, they got pretty good receivers out wide, and if Miami's secondary gives up some big plays, that can open up the offense a little bit for OSU. But ultimately, I think this is just going to be a defensive battle. You got Miami, whose defense is very stout also. Their front seven is very good. I think it's which offense will have the more success. What about you?
Yeah, I think we both talked about this last week. We're both riding with OSU. Obviously, their key players are Julian Sayin. You've heard his name, especially in the Heisman talk. He's very vulnerable to pressure. He was sacked 5 times in the Big Ten title game, so that's going to be crucial, especially going against Miami's front. And then you talked about it, Jeremiah Smith, 80 catches, 1,086 yards, and 11 touchdowns, and that's despite a late season injury. And then you talked about multiple wide receivers. You have Carnell Tate on the other side, 48 catches, 838 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he's an explosive deep threat. All that put together is going to be major assets for OSU, and it's really going to come down to that front defensive line, in my opinion, if they're going to be able to really affect Sayin and affect the way that the Ohio State Buckeyes play the rest of the game. So let's talk a little bit more about Miami. What do you see from them? What do you expect? How are you expecting them to kind of come out?
I think they will do just enough to keep it a close game, but ultimately I have no faith in that Miami offense whatsoever. You had Fletcher, he went off and had over 170 yards against A&M, but again, Texas A&M level defense is right here. And then that Ohio State's defense is
Yeah.
way at the top, and they're the cream of the crop. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a completely different level of competitiveness, and their strengths on this OSU defense is the up front. And then, of course, you also have Caleb Downs in the secondary. So they're going to have to really pick apart that OSU defense, which is going to be a very tall task. So Carson Beck, yeah, I like him. He's a decent QB, but ultimately, I think he's going to make one or two mistakes that cost Miami the game.
Yeah, as far as Carson Beck, I do think he's obviously going to do enough to get you to that title game. At the end of the day, he's 74.5% completion rate, 163.8 passer rating, but he has 10 interceptions this season. So he's definitely going to need to bounce back after that windy game. The win against Texas A&M, you've got to wonder, you talked about the defense, but how much the wind really played a factor in that game. And if they're just going to bounce back, that's not even a factor. So I see them sticking with them in the beginning, but I'm not seeing much of a difference. As it gets into the later half, I'm not thinking that they're going to be able to stick with Ohio State.
My key to victory for OSU is it's all up front, those big boys up front. Their offensive line has struggled for most of the year. So if they can hold their own in double teams or one-on-one on that front seven from Miami, then they will more than likely win this game. So the key for victory for OSU is that offensive line. They got to stay with it.
For sure. And OSU's O-line, they've been dealing with injuries. The right guard, I think it's Tegra Chashabola. He's out for this game. That's going to be a key factor. Miami, their pass rush, they've got 7 sacks, 9 tackles for losses versus Texas A&M. That says a lot about what they're able to do. And again, we'll see how it goes. Maybe they come out and surprise us.
Yeah, you're right. Ultimately, I got my final prediction, 17-13, the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good, man. Historically, these teams are 2-2, so this is going to be the tiebreaker for them, and we'll see who takes it.
Yeah, right on.
All right, let's get into Oregon versus Tech. What are you seeing for this one? I was super surprised Oregon is a favorite here overall. It is a close one. They're a 2.5-point favorite. So that's not anything crazy, but it's not what I was expecting. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking that line was going to be a little less than 2.5. But ultimately, the storyline for me for this game is it's going to be strengths against strengths. I'm looking Oregon as their offense is number 2 overall in the nation. And then you have their rushing attack, which is second in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a run by committee. They have 3 or 4 solid running backs. You could plug anyone in there, and they're just going to dominate. They're going to ground and pound. So I'm looking at Tech. Their defense is 3rd overall, and they're number 1 in rushing. So that's where the strengths against strengths come in for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just seeing who's going to win that battle in the rushing attack.
Yeah, definitely Texas Tech's defense is something that you're going to be wanting to watch out for. On the other side with Oregon, Dante Moore, he's going to be a first-round pick, 3,046 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. Jordan Davis, potentially returning from injury. De'Aaron Hill?
Yeah, De'Aaron here.
De'Aaron Hill. So, like you said, those are their plug-and-play running backs. Decorian Moore, 29 catches, 448 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's explosive. He's coming back from a knee injury. So, you have a couple of people coming back for this one. It's going to be a really big game, and y'all are going to be relying on that offense to be able to come out fast, hard, and just hopefully overwhelm this Texas Tech defense.
Yeah, I think the key to victory for Oregon will have to be to go against everything that their identity is. They're a run-first offense. They always run down your throat to get their passing game open. So that number 1 rushing defense of Tech is going to make it very hard for us to get anything going on the ground. So ultimately, you flip the script. Okay, so Dante Moore, that's going to be a lot more on your back.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to rely on your shoulders and your decisions down the field. So having Decorian Moore back and Gary Bryant back will help a lot. So I feel very confident about Dante Moore because in the big moments, he's stepped up and made the right plays.
Yeah, and that's going to be great if Dante Moore can be able to make that difference, but I would love to see Oregon come out and just try and run that ball down their throats. I think that's going to be a really good key to victory for them. They're number 2 nationally, 5.9 yards per carry, and they're going to need creativity to kind of open up those rushing lanes for those guys. Another thing is generate those explosive plays. They're leading FBS with 91 of 20-plus yards, top 4 in both pass and run explosive plays. and they're going to need that to stretch Texas Tech's defense.
Yeah, here's a stat, red zone touchdown percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon is, on their defensive side, relying on 75% of drives in the red zone. They're giving up 75% touchdowns. But then on the flip side of that, Tech's offense, their red zone is like in the middle of the pack nationwide. So that's weakness on weakness, if you'd say.
Yeah. So let's get into some keys for victory for Texas Tech. They're going to need to dominate with the defense. Number 3 points per game allowed, with number 1 in takeaways with 31. Number 5 in total defense with averaging 2.3 yards per carry. So they're going to need to obviously stop the run. That's going to be very instrumental, and they're going to need Dante Moore. They want him to try to pass to win the game. So that's definitely something they're going to be looking to do. Another thing is leverage the pass rush. You got to pressure Dante Moore and disrupt Oregon's explosive plays. We said Oregon again, number 1 in explosive plays, so they've got to put a stop to that. And Jacob Rodriguez is definitely going to do his best to stifle that. And then maintain a balanced offense. Number 2, scoring at 42.5 points per game. Number 5 in total yards with 480. And with Morton's efficiency, Dickey's ground game, they're going to be looking to just have a all-around balanced game. At the end of the day, I'd like to think that Texas Tech, they have the more balanced offense. They have the more balanced, not balanced offense, but all around, comparable to their defense. So I don't know much about Oregon's defense and what they've been able to put out there, but I do know about Texas Tech, and I do know about what their offense has been able to do. Again, we said number 5 in overall pass yards, or yards total. So that's what I'm thinking.
Oregon's defense is top 10 nationwide.
Okay.
But what we're known for is limiting the explosive plays. We're leading the nation in minimizing damage. So Tech, they've made a lot of splashy plays this year, so that kind of matches up well. But ultimately, like you said, I feel like Tech is a little bit more balanced than Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So my keys for victory for Tech is just getting pressure and constant pressure on Dante with your front 4.
Yeah.
That front 7, they are very stout and very tough up front with that 7. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to that front 4 in the trenches.
Ultimately, I think Oregon's got to have a high-scoring game to be able to prevent where the games where Texas Tech shines is those low defensive type scoring games. So they've definitely got to come out hard and fast and really just get up ahead of these guys, something that we haven't seen this year happen to Texas Tech.
Yeah, I got going exactly against what you said. I have a low-scoring game that Oregon is going to win. I have 23-20.
Okay.
So if that does happen, that's going to be completely opposite of Texas Tech's identity. They've always dominated those low-scoring games.
And we see that commonly in the college football playoff. It's any given Saturday. But yeah. You ready to get into the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into Alabama versus Indiana. This is the first time these teams will be meeting. What are your thoughts?
I'm thinking Indiana is the more complete team, the more balanced team. But they have lost one of their best defensive players in Stephen Daly. He's a up-front player. So he's going to be out. My initial thoughts are Indiana, they don't have as much skill as Alabama, but they are freakishly disciplined. Like, you're not going to catch them where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So the depth for Indiana might be a little concerning for me, just because they've got players that are super disciplined, but they don't really have that skill depth that these blue chip teams that Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, OSU, those teams have a lot of depth. Indiana doesn't have that depth, but they're going to beat you with the discipline.
Okay.
And whatever they lack in skill, they'll make up in discipline.
I'm pretty much right there with you. If this thing was based off of coaching, culture, and discipline, I'm picking Indiana all day. But when you take into consideration the level of talent, the experience, the team that's been here before, that's been in these type of games, I think this is their 3rd year in the row being in this game for Alabama. Like we talked about this last week, I think that's going to ultimately be the difference. Some key players to watch. You've heard about these people. Ty Simpson, early Heisman frontrunner, 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions over 14 games. And he's had pretty much an up and down season. We've seen him look like the best player in the country at times, and then we've seen him have some not great games. So, again, it's just kind of which version of him you're going to be seeing out here, and definitely the Indiana defense is going to play a big role in that. And then you got wide receiver Ryan Williams, 43 catches, 636 yards, 4 touchdowns, down from his freshman year with drops, Just 7 catches for 108 yards last 5 games, including 1 for 5 versus Oklahoma. So they're going to need more production from him, and that's what I'm thinking for Alabama and their key players. Let's get into Indiana a bit. What are you thinking about them?
Yeah. Indiana has, like I said earlier, they have a very complete team, a very balanced offense. And Fernando Mendoza, he's just the absolute best example of being a field general.
Yeah.
He's not super talented that you think of Heisman Trophy winners being, but he's always making the right decisions at the right times. And then Indiana has so many skills players. I know that's going against exactly what I just said a few minutes ago. They have a lot of very talented players, and what makes them even better is being super disciplined, not only on defense but also on offense. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Initial thoughts is it's going to be a low defensive game, but in my opinion, these offenses are going to do everything that they can to put points on the board, and these defenses are going to struggle stopping them.
And that's one thing to say they have a lot of skill players, but it's another thing to be able to pass it around, share the ball, and be able to spread it out. And that's going to be a huge thing Alabama's going to be looking to wrangle. You said it with Fernando Mendoza. He's a complete stud, everything you want to see from a quarterback as far as personality, discipline, the way he's able to rally the troops. I know Kurt Cignetti's played a huge role in that, and you're looking at him possibly being the number 1 pick in the draft. We've seen almost everything from him. So he's going to be 100% an X factor in this one. And the team ranks top 10 nationally in scoring offense 3rd, scoring defense 2nd, total offense 8th, total defense 4th, 3rd down conversions 1st, and turnover margin 2nd. So they're right up there in the top rankings with all the other teams who are up in that upper echelon. But again, I think what we're talking about being the difference is going to be that experience.
I think the keys for success for both teams will be all of their points scored over the air. It'll be all air damage. I just think these two teams in their running games will struggle quite a bit. Yeah, they'll make some plays here and there just to get both offenses by, but ultimately I think all the damage for both teams will be through the air.
What do you think that final score is going to be?
It's going to be high scoring. I'm going 35-32 Indiana.
Okay. So you think it's going to be actually pretty close?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's going to be close as well. But again, I think when it gets down to the stretch, when it gets into the trenches, you're going to be able to feel the difference in talent. And Ty Simpson's going to just have to be able to have a monster game through the air. And that's saying something with Indiana's elite pass defense. But at the end of the day, something's got to give. Like you said, you talked about it with the Oregon game, some of the best in the country versus the best. You're going to see that again with Alabama versus Indiana. For the final one, we got Ole Miss. Number 6 versus number 3 Georgia. Series overall, Georgia has dominated. They're 35-13-1 versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss would like to think this one's going to be a little different. I'm not seeing that with my magic crystal ball, but what are your thoughts?
That magic crystal ball is saying Georgia is just going to steamroll Ole Miss. Ultimately, Georgia needs to dictate the pace and control this game, and I think they will pretty easily. You know how Ole Miss dominated the game against Tulane? I think we're going to see that domino effect, and just see there's tiers to these games and tiers to these different teams that you're facing, and Georgia's one of the cream of the crop. They're one of the best in the nation, so I think Ole Miss is going to get steamrolled.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Gunnar Stockton, 2,691 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 70% completion rating, 442 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. He's a stud in himself, and like you said, just with the experience that Georgia's had in this game, in these situations, I'm just not seeing Ole Miss being able to pull a rabbit out of the hat here, especially with Lane Kiffin missing from the sideline. I think that was one of the X factors they did have, was great coaching, but at the end of the day, he's not there anymore. They've got an interim head coach there right now, and I'm not seeing too many paths to victory for this Ole Miss team.
We know Ole Miss's offense is going to score some points, but I just don't think it'll be enough points to keep them in this game.
Yeah, and I think Georgia's defense is going to do a pretty good job of putting a stop to a lot of the flashy plays that they're used to having over there at Ole Miss. What are you thinking for the score there?
I've got 30-20 dogs all day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right there with you. So, you ready to get into the triumphant moment?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man.
My triumphant moment is going to be Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. So, first play of the game against the Bears, guess what happened? Threw a pick six. And it wasn't anything that was necessarily his fault. It just fell right out of the receiver's hands and bumped right into the defensive player's hands, and he took it all the way to the house. But really, that just comes to show the relentless that Brock Purdy has shown throughout his career. It started out exactly how you wanted it not to be. He was Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. So just to see his performance being Mr. Irrelevant and carrying that team to the Super Bowl, yeah, they lost, but it's Brock Purdy. Who was Brock Purdy? We didn't know who this guy was. And then he started building momentum and having this fan base support him, and it's just been really amazing to watch his progression and see him become this top 10 quarterback in the NFL. It just goes to show you don't know how much this means to players and what all they're going through. Last pick in the draft, you're thinking, dang, I got to look for another job. And then a few months later, he's a starter for the 49ers. Just how things happen, how the stars all aligned for him to start for the 49ers, and he hasn't looked back since. He's got super rich after that, and he's just balling, and he has a really good shot of leading the 49ers, a banged-up 49ers. He's not throwing to Brandon Ayuk anymore. He's not throwing to Debo anymore. Yeah, he's got CMC, the best running back in the league. You think George Kittle's been out quite a bit. So the people that he is throwing to aren't household names yet.
Yeah.
So it's just been really impressive to see him triumph over every little thing that has happened and kind of gone against him.
Yeah, I definitely think he's gotten some flack. All the amazing things he's been able to do with his tenure with the 49ers. A lot of that gets overblown by the position he got put in, which was Shanahan, Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Fred Warner on the opposite side, and all these other pieces, George Kittle, and there's more that they had at that time. Just a completely stacked team that they had over there. So they thought he was maybe just a game manager or something, and he's been able to prove through injury, through a lot of these pieces leaving, that, hey, he's the guy. We saw even at a point at the middle of the season where he was out and Mac Jones stepped in and actually had some really good games. And there was maybe even some questions there, but this guy is just not listening to any of the noise. Shanahan is sticking beside his main guy. And like you said, he hasn't looked back ever since. So for him to be able to triumph over all of that, get his payday, and then continue to dominate and play like he has been, triumphant to say the least.
Yeah, and he's playing his best ball right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what I've got for the triumphant moment, it's not necessarily a moment. It's kind of like over the course of the season. But I had to just because it's been on my mind. Like every time I see it across my screen, every time I watch a Rams game, seeing 37-year-old Matthew Stafford out there just wheeling and dealing, looking like the best version of himself, man. 4,179 yards this season, 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It's the best he's looked. The team's 11-4. 12-4 after tonight whenever they beat the Falcons. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. I might eat crow next week, but man, these guys look really good. But yeah, just for him, like, to stick with it in Detroit the way he did, just doing his job, controlling what he could control. We talked about it earlier with some QBs being in less ideal situations and being able to overcome that. We definitely appreciate that, obviously based on your moment and what I'm going off of here. But I think we can agree it's definitely one of the hardest positions in the NFL, let alone what he's done, but what he's doing now at 37 years old, looking at the best that he's looked with. I don't think he has a lot of weapons on that side. He's got Kyron Williams, he's got Puka Nacua, but aside from that, those guys aren't top 5 guys. Puka Nacua looks good, and I know he had a really good season, led the NFL in passing yards, but I'm not necessarily putting him in my top 5 at this point. But just to be able to see what he's able to do is definitely triumphant.
Yeah, I agree. I've always loved Matthew Stafford, and he's one of those players that he's throwing his way into the Hall of Fame, even back in Detroit, and he just didn't have a good supporting cast. Yeah, he had Megatron, but outside of that, who did he have?
Yeah, and that was just for a portion of his career, right? He retired early, and obviously those were some of his best seasons in Detroit.
That's kind of been the overlying theme of this episode, is having the QB in the right situation, and he's in the perfect situation in LA with Sean McVay.
Yeah.
They're probably the Super Bowl favorites this year. Ultimately, I could see them going all the way to the Super Bowl, and I see it being a LA Rams and Texans Super Bowl match. We played them week 1, they won, so I'm hoping if that was the case, it'd be a little different. But yeah,
Mhm.
Matthew Stafford has just continued to be triumphant in Detroit, and then here, his first year in LA, just be triumphant and learning a new system and then winning the Super Bowl. That's awesome.
Sounds good.
We would love to hear your triumphant moments and tell us about all our bad takes. We'll see you on the flip side.
See ya.